Greetings and welcome to a computer reset update thing here on LGR. And yeah, this is the 38,000 square foot warehouse that I covered here on LGR a while back. I would highly recommend watching that video if you haven't seen it before this, because it's going to be an update to that. And it was just quite the experience. It's fun to watch, I think, and it got quite the response. It was more popular of a video than I even thought it would be. So yeah, as a result, here it is, a couple, 2.5, 3 years, whatever, it's been a while. Time is passing, it's weird, but yeah, it's still there, and stuff has been happening at Computer Reset ever since then, so it didn't actually shut down at that point, thankfully. But here, a little bit later, it is getting to that point in time where they actually are going to be shutting it down for good, so I've been wanting to revisit anyway and just get an update on the situation and see what has changed, because the volunteers that have stepped up to help this thing transform into somewhere where people could actually come in and take stuff on weekends. I mean, it's been quite a process, but I've just seen it from a distance. So anyway, Noel, the current owner of the place, got in touch and said, hey, you want to come film an update? Let's make that happen at some point. So here a few weeks ago at this point, my brother Luke and I did that. She helped us with some of our travel costs, which was nice. And we just got to go back to Computer Reset and film it, this time in 4K, which was, there's actual planning this time. There was all sorts of weirdness that happened in that last video, but not this time. We got plans, with the main part of that plan being to just record the experience of going to one of these Computer Reset events that they do on weekends and just get that whole thing captured. I'm not there to pick up stuff for myself this time around. I mean, I wasn't really last time either, but yeah, that's not my goal. I just want to document the place one last time, probably, for me anyway. So if you want to just see the weekend events, the warehouse tour and stuff, there's a little time code there you can skip to, but there's a little bit of context and some things, I thought were interesting that I've learned since last time. I have notes. So yeah, I would just want to start off with saying that what in the world was Computer Reset? Well, it was a big warehouse full of computers, obviously, but why was so much of it there? How did it get that way? What was the business even for the longest time? Well, it was run by a man, Richard Byron, for decades, and he bought up all kinds of unsold inventory and decommissioned machines from generally the Texas DFW area, but really all over from what we could tell, and just obsoleted machines from schools and banks, governments and businesses, wherever was clearing out stuff, with the idea to not only sell that stuff, fix it up, repair it, and provide it cheaply to whoever locally needed it, but also just providing general repair services for older machines in general. He had a shop there and he offered repairs for a long time, up until like the late 2000s, it seems. And the Computer Reset services were advertised in a lot of different places, just classifieds and magazines, different periodicals, later did some eBay stuff. They also had the Computer Reset Gazette. Found a bunch of those while we were there this time and brought one or two of those home. It was just a fascinating look at sort of their newsletter and the things that were going on at Computer Reset, mostly in the 90s, it looks like, when these gazettes were made. It was fascinating. It was just a kind of all-around computery place in their heyday. But over the years, the place just got more and more filled up with stuff, and Richard's health started sadly declining, and he actually passed away just a couple of months after doing that Computer Reset video that I did in 2019. He was 75, and yeah, years of declining health. Sadly, that's how that went. After Richard passed, Noelle, his daughter, she was left with the property, and it kind of became her burden at that point. And we had been in touch, well, I hadn't been directly, but folks had been in touch with her throughout the whole Computer Reset experience when I was going there that first time, but she very much became more active once it was left to her, effectively. And at that point, after my video had gone live and really started blowing up, it was then that they had the Facebook group going for the liquidation of the warehouse. That was the goal. We're like, okay, we just want to get all this stuff out of here and hopefully into the hands of collectors and museums or whoever. And the group just kind of blew up. It's almost 10,000 group users, groupies. What do you call them? I don't know, man. I don't use Facebook, but and as a result, there were tons of volunteers that came in from all over the area, some farther than others, to help clean it up. That was the main thing at the beginning, is because I mean, it was a hoarder's den kind of situation, sadly, so there was a lot of trash and a lot of stuff that was pretty darn gross, you know. Apparently they tossed like dozens of dumpsters worth of just trash and mildewy cardboard and things like that. And then there was a whole months-long situation where the volunteers were coming in and just like unearthing stuff, unboxing stuff, reboxing stuff, organizing it, sorting it out, putting it in some sort of resemblance of order as much as you could for this place, which, I mean, there was so much to go through. It was an unbelievable task, and yeah, as we're gonna see here pretty soon, they did some great work. And while safety was a big part of this whole plan of cleaning up and reorganizing stuff, they never actually did reopen Computer Reset fully publicly or anything like that. It wasn't an open business, no matter what Google Maps might have said at one point, or maybe still says. Yeah, it's not open to the public, but what they were doing is through that Facebook group, they would let individuals in smaller groups just to be able to go inside, and you'd pay a fee and take stuff home. You know, it was their way of getting folks in to get stuff out. For a while, it was just like make a pile and then, you know, sort of make an offer on price and haggle a bit. But now I think for a while at least, it's been $150, just a flat rate, and you take as much as you want. I was asking how much I thought had been actually taken over the past couple of years, and they estimated something like at least 50 to 60% or so. So a lot has been gone, but there's still a bunch that remains. So yeah, enough context. Let's just get out to Dallas and get to it. So yeah, a few weeks ago, met up with my brother Luke. We got our camera gear and some plans of some sort in order and just hopped on a plane. Started making our way to Dallas from North Carolina. We left really early on a Friday morning, made our way through Atlanta, eventually touching down late on that Friday morning, and pretty much as soon as we got our stuff in terms of luggage and then a rental car, we just made our way directly over to the warehouse where some volunteers were waiting to show us around. Welcome back to Computer Reset. Now with all signage and numbering removed from the building and everything all boarded up to reduce break-ins, and this time around we were let in the other side of the building, which it didn't actually show last time. This used to be a U-Haul business that was also owned by Richard. And yeah, I didn't see this because we couldn't get in last time, but it too was absolutely filled to the brim, apparently, with computers and stuff, and it's being emptied out over the course of the weekend here we were visiting. And passing through here brought us back to the back lot, and already this gives you an idea how much has actually been cleaned up. There were piles of monitors, printers, computers, and random trash everywhere back here, but it's almost entirely clear now. Anyway, yeah, from here we could walk back inside and make our way to the front of the main building, and wow, again, just look at this. There's a floor you can walk around. And a little plant area, water fountain thing in the middle. Where did that come from? Yeah, this whole front lobby area looks great. The volunteers have done an incredible job all over this place, and I might be saying that a lot in this video because it's true and they deserve props. But yeah, let's just begin wandering around Computer Reset once again. We're going to start over in this little front corner of the building. It's one of my favorite spots in Computer Reset just because it feels like stepping back in time to a computer software and peripherals storefront in the 90s, and it's much more cleaned up and has proper lighting now, and has also been organized a bit in terms of grouping like software together and getting the shelves cleaned up, and you know, there's a floor. That's a big deal. I don't know, man, this is just one of those rooms with all the shelves full of software that you just don't get to experience anymore. I mean, unless you're at my place. But, you know, all the stuff laid out in this computer store setup is so cool to see. I absolutely kept coming back to this one little part of the building several times throughout this trip because it was a trip to experience, looking a little closer to what it might have looked like back in the day. With all these printers and modems and bits of hardware and software and documentation and books and stuff like this that really stood out for the box art. MGI Soft DVD Max 4.0. Maximum DVD experience, more like maximum year 2000. The guy's Y2K style on the box, just perfection. Anyway, moving back out into the main lobby area and over in this corner here, which had all these shelves filled with laptops and random desktops, a ton of it, which has been completely taken away since the last time I was here. Still a good number of laptops left, most of which were in pretty bad condition, to be honest, but you know, it's been picked over for a couple of years and here's what remains. Either way though, it's nice to see it all somewhat organized. Pretty much all of the laptops in the building were just brought into this one area. Same with the computer speakers and a ton of the late 90s, early to mid 2000s desktops that were in here. And then turning around from there and making our way through this little back room full of just random stuff into one of the back hallways and another room that used to be the laptop room. All those laptops were, of course, moved out to the front area of Computer Reset, and now what's been put in here are all the laptop accessories. Lots and lots of docking stations and add-on drives and port replicators, lots of bags and cases. Those filing cabinets were just chock full of random power supplies. And yeah, while it might not be the most organized by company or model or whatever, the point is they're all in one spot. Massive improvement. Same goes for this room down the hall, which is the drive room, and it was floor to ceiling, could barely even step in there last time I was here. Well, now you can tell it has been thoroughly gone through, both in terms of cleaning up and organizing, and also people just coming in and taking stuff over the past couple of years. A ton of it has been taken home, and that's great, because there was a bunch of good stuff in here. Floppy drives, hard drives, optical drives, tape drives, and so on. The vast majority is gone, so most of what remains are just like OEM drives that would go into laptops or other computers where they had a custom bezel, so they don't have the bezel anymore. Honestly, like 5 or 6 of these things I wanted to take home if I had the space, early CD-ROMs especially. But yeah, just an awful lot of random drives, man. You really got to go through here if you're looking for something specific. And it is worth noting that just about every 5¼ inch drive has been long gone from the entirety of Computer Reset. Those were just way too useful, sought after, and valuable really at this point that, yeah, you know they were going to be gone pretty quickly once they started letting folks in. And across the hall from there was this repair and servicing room with all the soldering stations and other testing equipment and stuff. And yeah, a lot of that has been cleared out as well. Like at this point, it's just a lot of bits and bobs for the most part. Random cables, various adapters and bits of hardware. There was a ton of floppy disk software as well. I think that's all gone to a museum. I did like this old security cam monitor here. Look at that burn-in. That is extensive. You can tell he was looking at that doorway for the longest time. And then over to the left of that is what is known as the parts room. And again, there's still a bunch left, but it has all been grouped together as well as possible. And you're going to be seeing a lot of those Zenith multimedia player boxes. There were none of those machines here ever. There were just a ton of the empty boxes, so they've been making use of them all throughout the facility, once again just filling them up with groups of stuff. And in this room in particular, it's mostly add-on cards and motherboards. But in all actuality, you could find a little bit of everything in here, which is what made this room so fascinating originally coming through. Just boxes and boxes of motherboards and modems and video cards. A lot of the sound cards and really interesting video cards are long gone, but there are still a good number of late 90s, early 2000s stuff. And then adjacent to the parts room, there is this hallway down here, which again, previously was filled floor to ceiling with computers and monitors and keyboards and all sorts of stuff, which like 90% of that is gone. And now it's just lined up with a bunch of other things. So you still do have a good row of CRT monitors down here, which haven't been picked up by people for one reason or another. Pretty much all of these have some kind of a problem. Either they've been tested and they're not working, or there's some issue with the display itself being a little off, or they're just straight up physically broken. It might be a good monitor underneath, so spare parts kind of stuff here. But then there's this whole row of primarily IBM software. A lot of this has been brought out from the warehouse side and just found on pallets and stacks of boxes that were full of these new old stock. Niche applications and various 1980s IBM PC software and documentation packages. Things like IBM Planning Assistant and Display Writer and graphing software and whatever else, just productivity things that aren't necessarily the most sought after, so there's still quite a bit left. That's about it down here though. If we head upstairs to the second floor, well, this is probably the most impressive change since my last visit, in the sense that there's not much to see up here at all. Like this room over here, check it out. This room had the Coke machine and a ton of PCs and terminals and things, just tons of stuff. It was a spot that was so stuffed with stuff that it was hard to even find a place to step, and now it's almost entirely empty, the vast majority of items having found new homes. Really, the same goes for most of the rooms upstairs. They're largely empty or only filled with a few stragglers of computers, word processors, fax machines, and office paraphernalia. Though I did run into this little guy. Oh man, look at this. This is an Acer Aspire from around 1997, super similar to the PC that I got that year. This one was a Pentium 2, whereas mine was an AMD K6, but still, you don't see these very often, and I was surprised no one had taken this one yet, even with the missing front panel. But yeah, not much more to see upstairs really, beyond this room with a bunch more office and business stuff lying around, along with some boxes of old photography and film related things. Oh, and the AV room, which still has the most stuff in it, mostly incomplete desktops, random rack mount systems and server equipment, and a handful of piled up analog audio and video hardware of dubious condition. And that's that. Back downstairs then, right past today's sponsor, Land Rover VPN, for all your virtually private local area network needs. Okay, yeah, there's no sponsorships here, but hey, it's a physical VPN, I had to. Anyway, on through the hallway again, and finally, it's onto the warehouse itself. This remains immediately awe-inspiring in person. Let me tell you, this is still the stuff of dreams, man. Regardless of the sheer mountain of items that's already been claimed, there's still an absolute mountain remaining. And it's still hugely engaging to go around and look through this stuff, because with every box that's been gone through and pallet that's been cleared out, that's only uncovered another layer of stuff that hadn't been seen before, and opened up a space for other unseen items to be brought in from other parts of the facility, like over on the U-Haul side. Yeah, seriously, going through here this time was quite a different experience for me, not only due to the space where I could actually walk around safely, but there were all new things that had been uncovered and taken down from way up high, making it easier to look through. On that note, looking from above is still quite appealing, and I convinced Luke to head up the scaffolding and do some filming. They don't normally let visitors go up there during weekend events, of course, but hey, I already did it myself last time. It's time for the younger brother to earn his keep and get some good overhead shots. And yeah, the shots were good. If you go back and look at the old video sometime, you really get a sense for just how much has been gone through and hauled off since 2019, and yet how daggone much is still here. Much of it packed away inside boxes, underneath things, or behind something else on a pallet, still barely touched. It's still a ridiculous computer warehouse, and I just love looking at this place. That being said, yeah, pretty much all the name brand, sought after, obviously valuable machines are long gone. Stuff like the early IBM PCs and compact systems, all the Macintoshes, anything from Commodore or Digital, that stuff was snapped up ages ago. Mostly what's still here are these IBM PCs and some compacts and Dells and stuff from the mid to late 90s, early 2000s. A lot of Pentium 3 type of things. And that's about it in terms of intact desktop systems. And make no mistake, there's a lot of that left, and there's exceptions to the rule, of course. Some things are still stacked underneath other things that might be more interesting, but for the most part, you're looking at these mid to late 90s machines running Windows 98 or XP. Although you might be seeing some things wrapped in caution tape, and there's a reason for that. Those are set aside for museum pieces. Like, look at this beast right here, that is a big wang. In fact, there were a couple of big wangs set aside for museums, and some fascinating displays, like check this beauty out. This is an IBM 5251 display station terminal from the mid-70s, just gorgeous. Along with a good bit of mainframe, big iron, mini computer related stuff that was here last time has just been more uncovered. And again, some absolutely fascinating terminal displays and other kinds of monitors. Like, look at these. These are truly special. These are IBM 3290 information panels, and these are actually amber orange gas plasma displays. Really extremely cool looking. I've always wanted to get my hands on one and a system that would let me use it just to show it in action because it looks incredible in photos. I've never actually seen one that works. And on a related note, there actually were still a bunch of terminals hanging around, more than I expected. Most of the really old, interesting ones are all gone, of course, but yeah, like this pile here, I don't know what the status of those was. They look pretty rough and might be set aside for museums too. And then there were these stacks just across different spots in the warehouse of tested PC Junior monitors mostly. Not all of them work, but they have been tested, so plenty to choose from in that regard, and they really want as many monitors taken away as possible because they can be quite expensive and tricky to recycle and all that. They have notes either written or stuck on them somewhere saying the condition of them. With a lot of that testing taking place right here, they've set up a nice test bench area where computers and displays and all sorts of stuff has been plugged in and tested out in a space dedicated to it. Which, from what I gather, a lot of those duties ended up falling to Andy here, who was testing stuff out when we were there. Whether it was TVs or monitors or PCs or other random gadgets, just whatever, performing smoke tests and hooking them up to oscilloscopes and power tests and all kinds of things. Just generally figuring out what's crap and what's slightly less crap. Turns out he's involved in all kinds of different programming endeavors as well, especially with QBasic stuff. And yeah, he had this really fascinating version of Tetris that he put together. I'm definitely going to be using this in random future videos wherever I'm showing off different DOS systems, because this is actually a really well-made, fascinating version of Tetris, I thought. Now, this is also where we ran across the Flyby 2 screensaver on an old Lockheed Martin system. It was just a Windows 95 PC that had more or less been used as a terminal connecting to other systems, it looked like. But on this workstation, yeah, it was this really interesting screensaver. I've done a whole couple of videos on this actually over on my LGR Blurbs channel. Check that out. A really fascinating, interesting YouTube-y internet rabbit hole that the community went down, and we uncovered all sorts of stuff. The original programmer got involved and chimed in, and now the source code is available and there's different updated versions for modern systems you can run. Anyway, it's a whole thing. I really recommend checking out that video if you're curious. You seriously never know what you're gonna find. And then opening the doors off to the side, yeah, there was even more stuff that still has not fully been gone through yet. So if you do get to go there, I highly recommend going around to those doors if they open those and seeing what is on those pallets and on those shelves that you normally can't get to from the main aisles inside the warehouse. Because honestly, every time that I go through here, I find something more interesting than the last time, whether it's a box full of weird magnetic media I've never seen before, or new old stock drives, or just random clone systems and server PCs that I have never seen before. Yeah, there'd be so many things that I would love to take home if I really had the space to do so and live nearby. Especially in all of these boxes that are still just stuffed with fascinating things the deeper you dig. Again, most of these Zenith labeled boxes, they were just empty and they've been filled with stuff by the volunteers, and then kind of loosely labeled with generally what might be inside, whether it's power supplies or cables or case parts, printers, manuals, driver discs or serial mouse devices and printer toners and catalogs and PC Junior shenanigans. And then there are all kinds of other boxes that aren't labeled and haven't really been fully gone through at this point, probably, just filled with cards and motherboards and random things that chances are they're not going to be worth anything to anyone, but it's probably worth looking. Like here, one box of randomness that we opened up happened to have unused IBM PC cables, both the power cable with the little monitor pass-through plug-in on the back and new old stock IBM Model M connectors for PS2 Model Ms. And yeah, just spent a bit of time going through various boxes, looking at various things. Like here, I found an entire box full of DOS 3.3 sealed copies, but it was in Spanish. Does that make it DOS 3.3? I don't know, but it was pretty awesome. I'd never seen a Spanish version of DOS before. And yeah, it's these kind of little moments of just fascinating items that makes Computer Reset such an interesting grab bag of a place to wander through, just looking through all of these shelves and the boxes of goodies, never actually knowing quite what's going to be inside. Even if the box is labeled, I was still opening up the labeled boxes and then finding things that you just wouldn't expect in there, like bizarre versions of software or cards that somebody thought was one thing, but it got labeled as another, and it's like, oh man, there's one of these, I haven't seen one of those ever, or whatever. So, if nothing else, I'm gonna miss that aspect of visiting here whenever it's gone, because, you know, it's gonna be gone. Nothing lasts forever, this place included. Again, even after so much of it has gone off to new places and it's getting enjoyment in different parts of the community, there's still so much here. It's nuts. Like, even all the dozens of PC Juniors that used to be here, and there were tons of those systems, they're pretty much all gone. The boxed ones, the loose ones, and otherwise, but there are still so many related bits of PC Junior items here, whether it's software, peripherals, expansions, and sidecars, and all kinds of stuff is still around. But yeah, that's generally where Computer Reset is at this point. You know, there's still a bunch here, but obviously a ton of stuff has been hauled off, and that was the whole point. The community, the volunteers, and the owner, nobody wanted to just toss all of this. I mean, you know, maybe they did want to at some point, because I'm sure it did get frustrating, but, you know, ideally this goes to the people that want to make use of it, whether it's museums or folks in the vintage computing scene or just whoever's interested. And it's that community congregation aspect of all this, where folks come together to clean up and clear out the place one weekend at a time, that I've missed out on since first visiting a couple years ago. But no longer. What you've been watching is a Friday without public visitors, but we stayed through the weekend to film and experience 4 public Computer Reset events. 2 on Saturday, 2 on Sunday. With the first one happening at 8 a.m., so it's off for now to sort through footage, grab some supper, and get some rest before things kick off in the morning. Ah, what a lovely view of whatever this place is. At least the sunrise looks pleasant. And after some coffee, we headed straight back to the warehouse, where 10 or so Computer Reset vets and volunteers were already ready and waiting for the day's events, and half a dozen or so excited visitors were outside to be let in to explore. So yeah, the way this works is that small groups of folks from the liquidation group on Facebook are selected for weekend openings like this, and each one lasts about 2.5 to 3 hours. And currently, for a $150 flat fee, they're let inside to browse and take home all that they can. With Kevin here being one of the main volunteers heading things up and going over the rules and common courtesies expected, with each of the 2 groups wandering inside each day.
Welcome to the Madness List Computer Reset. This is 100% mask-wearing environment. Masks are required over your nose and mouth at all times. We build our piles in the backyard of the building. To go in the backyard of the building, walk through the hallway. You'll get to the warehouse. There's a big blue genie, some shopping carts, and a bunch of other crap out there. Hang a right, you'll be out in the backyard. There are tables out there to build your piles. And with that, come on inside.
Ooh, how exciting. It was awesome seeing folks pop into the place for the first time, or the second or third time in some cases, but yeah, everyone just has their own expectations, their own wish lists of stuff they're looking for, their own interests and agendas for what will and won't grab their attention, and yeah, just seeing everybody go around do their thing, that's one reason I really wanted to make this video, because I think sharing some of this excitement and sort of visual window shopping by proxy can be a lot of fun if you can't make it out here yourself before it closes. But if you can make it out, well, here's pretty much what you can expect. You more or less get free reign over the place to dive into the boxes, pallets, shelves, and just about all corners of the warehouse filled with random retro goodies ripe for the taking. As mentioned earlier, about the only stuff off limits are items reserved for museums and preservationists surrounded by yellow caution tape, and only a few rooms are locked off, like the offices and spots being used for storage. Like this area back here the volunteers call Narnia, filled with piles of fascinating items set aside for one reason or another, destined for a better life elsewhere. Like these boxes of IBM 7496 executive workstations. Still new old stock in the original packaging, well worth preserving for future generations that, oh no, 8-bit guy, get out of here, not again! Haven't the IBMs suffered enough? But yeah, generally it's a pretty chill experience during these events. Have fun, use common sense, and don't go poaching other stuff from the tables they set up out back, which are filled up throughout the day with everyone's findings to take home. It's super interesting just to watch this area, really, and see what shows up. Since you have no way of knowing what you'll find, even the volunteers don't fully know. There's just so much still to go through, and it is more than fair what they're asking in terms of pricing right now with the flat fee, since even a few select items can easily cover your costs if sold to the right collector. In fact, the folks running things constantly encourage taking multiple examples of things if you can, since you don't always know what works and spare parts are always nice to have, but also because, hey, it might prove useful for selling or trading later on down the line. And the more that gets taken, the more stuff is out of the warehouse, and the less they have to worry about later on when the place is eventually shut down for good and sold off. Which, again, is the goal here. Liquidation. Get all this crap out of here. It's been a burden on Noelle and her family and all the volunteers and all the folks that they're just very clearly, understandably tired. They've been doing this for a long time now, coming here over these weekends and just offering their time and energy and resources, making this happen so that it all just doesn't end up e-cycled or in a landfill. It's commendable. I honestly didn't expect to see this kind of a result when I first visited there in 2019. And I'm really glad and grateful I was able to attend and see in person some of the process of things getting snatched up and taken away, and who knows what some of these folks are going to do with a lot of these things. I asked many times to many people, what are your plans for this? And honestly, the most common thing was, I don't know, I just think it's cool. So there was a lot of that, just folks coming in and being like, wow, look at all this cool stuff. Whatever, man, they're getting it out of there, so that's fine. What happens to it after that? Who knows? It could end up being resold, it could end up being traded, or in other YouTube videos, or just in personal collections. It's just spread all around the world from this one Texas warehouse, and it still looks like it hasn't been touched, at least if you don't have any other photos or video footage to compare it to. Obviously, a whole bunch has been taken. Like I said, the estimate's something like 60% has been claimed over the past couple years, but that still leaves, 40% of a 38,000 square foot warehouse is still a lot. And even disregarding that, it's just provided kind of a unique experience for anyone who's been able to visit and who still will be able to visit in the nearest future, in the sense that it's almost like a supermarket sweep situation where you're just going to shelves and taking as much as you can before the time runs out. That kind of energy level was infectious, and I was really enjoying it. And I imagine that feeling itself is a lot of what's kept the volunteers doing what they've been doing here for so long. And yeah, as for what I was doing here, I was just being LGR. It was basically a small LGR event, I guess. I don't know. Anyway, I was there and happy to talk with folks and took a lot of selfies, signed a lot of autographs and random bits of computer hardware, people just digging stuff up. Hey, would you sign this? Here you go. That was fun. And then just honestly digging through things with people too, and seeing right alongside the folks that were there interested in this stuff, many of which who learned about this from seeing the original LGR video. Yeah, just going through and seeing what they found and getting excited with them and listening to them go on about things and them listening to me go on about things, and just exploring this warehouse with other like-minded folks and people that knew way more than me, letting me know what interesting things were there that I had not even noticed, or the other way around, me finding something and then convincing people like, here, take this is cool, I promise. Yeah, it was just a lot of fun, man. I could do this kind of thing all day. And I did Saturday and Sunday. But just when I would start to feel fatigued or be like, oh man, where's the next coffee coming from? Somebody would just show up with an energy drink or a coffee or whatever. Be like, here, I have this thing. I'm like, okay, I'll drink that. And then we'd go and start looking through more boxes and find something else. Somebody would climb up a set of shelves up near the rafters, and all of a sudden, hey, look, here's a box of unseen terminal keyboards and a bunch of fascinating mechanical switches and types of boards that I've never seen before, with fascinating layouts and adapters. And there were multiple moments like that in literally every single room and every corner of the warehouse. Somebody would open up a thing and be like, whoa! And then we'd be talking about it for 15 minutes as they were still sorting through stuff. And we start looking things up in Wikipedia and going down rabbit holes, or, oh, I've seen that on Computer Chronicles, or, oh, I saw that thing on Adrian's Digital Basement, or, some other channel. Somebody call up so-and-so. I know they would be interested. Yeah, that kind of thing. It's just something I honestly kind of wish I had more footage of, but during those moments I wasn't really recording myself, which is why I brought my brother there, but he was half the time off just getting his own footage. I mean, that's why I brought him. It's like, hey, just record what you think is interesting and get as much of the experience as you can, but even he got pulled aside and started talking to folks too, and he ended up going out and looking for some of his own things. Luke picked up a Fujitsu laptop, which actually ended up halfway kind of working, and we were able to get some spare parts for it because, in one of the other rooms, like, there was a power supply, and over there was the floppy disk, and over there was a battery and hard drive and some other things, and we just cobbled it together, and yeah, he's got a cool old laptop now. And man, we ended up with so much footage, something between 400, 500 gigs, I don't know, it was a lot. What you've been seeing here is a compilation of stuff from the entire weekend, really, so there were groups coming and going, 4 in all. But yeah, like the last day in particular, check out the tables out here. The tables didn't even come close to being able to contain people's halls. It was intense. Apparently some of the biggest takeaways of any of the weekends they've had in recent memory. Filling up U-Hauls and big vans and trucks and all kinds of stuff, with it just taking up half of the whole back area behind the building. All of these things are going home with somebody. I don't know where the heck they're gonna put it. Some of them I was asking, they didn't know where they were gonna put it. It was just like, I'm getting this to where I'm going and that's all I know. So hey, props to you, Godspeed. I hope most of that stuff works. You never know, but hey, you got a lot of it, so redundancy is the name of the game there. But yeah, that's pretty much it, I suppose. I mean, we've got a ton more footage, but you get the idea. It's just a really one-of-a-kind experience. I know there are other warehouses that are out there, but I don't think any of them are quite set up like this in terms of where you can just come in there and grab a bunch of stuff for a single flat rate price. And even then, like, it's the location itself and the particular style of collection of things that has just accumulated in the way that it has, and people running it, and like, it's just a mixture of people and things and the place and time. That's all come together to make Computer Reset stand out in my mind, even knowing that, again, there are other big computer warehouses out there that you can go into if you know who to talk to, but this is pretty special, I think. And I'm really glad that I got to see it, most likely for one last time. Yeah, I guess that's pretty much it for Computer Reset on LGR. I mean, I can't imagine that I'll be going back, at least not to the warehouse. I'll definitely want to go back to Dallas at some point. There's some cool folks I've met there and got offers to hang out that are just always coming through, so why not, right? But yeah, as for the warehouse itself, that's pretty much it. Like I said, they're going to be shutting it down either over the summer or like right after the summer. This year, 2022, is the plan. Liquidate as much as they can until then, get as many people in on weekends, and then just shut it down and sell the place off. It's got to happen for many reasons. So yeah, I wish them all the luck with that. And if you can get yourself down there and get in on one of these weekend events that, as they're still having them, definitely check out links in the description. You got to go through that Facebook group though. That's just how they're managing this in terms of moderating groups and making sure there's not people showing up at random, because that was a problem for a while too, and they had to board the place up because there were folks trying to break in and just being dumb about stuff. So there are slots on all of these weekends, and it seems to be most weekends that they're doing it, again, when like weather and volunteer availability happens. So look into that if you're interested. The Facebook group has a lot of cool photos of just maddeningly interesting stuff that people have found and uncovered there over the past few years. But yeah, just leave your comments. And if you've been there and found something cool, or if you haven't been there, maybe you've been somewhere similar, or you just want to go there, I don't know, man, leave comments. Comments are cool. And finally, of course, I just got to give a shout out to all the folks in Dallas that have been making this happen. Noel for helping get us out there and being very hospitable the entire time. And people are always extremely helpful, and it's been a fantastic journey each time that I've been there. And if nothing else, like, I'm just glad to have met all the people that we have through this process. It's almost like the warehouse has become secondary. I heard that a lot from a lot of the volunteers, where it's like, sure, all this computer stuff is pretty neat. In the end, though, it is just a bunch of stuff, And there's all these friendships and hangout sessions and just fun that they clearly have with each other. Like, that is a lot more important in the end, and I can really see that. You can feel that when you're hanging out with this group there and just having a good time despite all the hard work. So yeah, that's about it. Thanks for watching. And if you dug this episode on Computer Reset, do check out my previous one if you haven't, or I don't know, go revisit it and see what's changed compared to how it looks now. Or stick around for the other LGR things that are always in the works and coming to this channel here pretty soon. And once again, thank you for watching.